So if you've ever found yourself working, I don't know, 80-hour weeks for months on end, sacrificing your sleep, your sanity, all for a project that just felt doomed. Well, then you probably know exactly what we're talking about today. We're doing a deep dive into the Death March project.
And that's not just, a dramatic phrase. It's a very specific technical term from the sources. A Death March project, or DM, is basically defined as any project where the schedule or the budget or the staff,
All the key resources.
right, they're constrained by 50 to 100% of what they rationally should be.
50 to 100%. So wait, or if the objective chance of failure is over 50%, you're officially on a death march. But I have to ask, are the sources being a little hyperbolic here? I mean, is this really the normal state of things?
Well, that's what's so fascinating. The data in the sources actually backs it up. The really sobering conclusion is that these projects are often the norm, not the exception. Yeah. Your average big project is probably running 6 to 12 months behind schedule,
Yeah.
and it's 50 to 100% over budget. So in a way, the death march is just business as usual.
Okay. That completely changes the premise. So our mission today is to figure out the dark logic behind this. Why do smart people at smart companies even start these projects? What are the drivers politically, psychologically, and maybe most importantly, what are the actual practical strategies you can use if you suddenly realize you're on the march? All right, let's start with those constraints. The reason they're called DMs seems pretty simple. They're set up to fail by these just brutal parameters.
Absolutely. The budget gets cut in half or the team is less than half the size it needs to be.
And it's not random.
No, not at all. A lot of it is driven by this relentless competitive pressure. Management knows, rationally, a system needs 12 months to build, but they'll slap a 6-month deadline on it anyway,
Why?
because the competition's about to grab the market if they wait another day. Urgency
Yeah.
it demolishes reality.
But the sources point to something, I don't know, more insidious than just market pressure. Politics. It sounds like the technical problems are just symptoms of a political disease.
That's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
When you connect the dots, politics often becomes the dominant and fatal force. A DM project might be the result of a power struggle, some manager trying to score a high-risk win. Or, and this is pretty chilling, the sources say a project can be deliberately set up to fail.
As revenge.
It's a form of revenge on a rival manager. Yeah.
So if you're on the technical staff and you get that feeling that ugly politics are in play, what do? The advice isn't to ask for more documents, is it?
No, it's to trust your gut, your sixth sense.
Yeah.
If you ask your manager who's really calling the shots, and their answer is naive or vague or just way too optimistic,
That's your red flag.
that's your signal. It tells you your engineering skills are basically secondary to whatever political game is being played. Skepticism becomes your primary survival tool.
And then you have the naive optimism factor. You see this all the time, right? Especially with younger developers who are just convinced they can solve any problem with sheer cleverness or brute force.
Oh, absolutely. The 48-hour nonstop coding binge fueled by energy drinks.
They see a 12-month schedule cut to 6 and think, no problem, we'll just work harder.
Exactly. Whereas the battle-scarred veteran, as the source calls them, knows better. The veteran's advice when a naive young manager makes some ridiculously optimistic promise is, well, it's simple.
What is it?
Run.
So beyond individual ego,
Hmm.
what about external chaos? What forces these DMs on otherwise rational companies?
The sources list two big ones. First is just intense competition, sometimes from globalization or a sudden new technology.
Yeah.
Think about the early days of the World Wide Web, or Java. Companies started taking huge risks with bleeding-edge technology.
You were trying to build the plane while flying it.
Pretty much. And the second factor is more of a slow-motion train wreck. Unexpected government regulations with deadlines that you just can't negotiate. The classic example is the year 2000 problem.
Ah, right. Y2K.
Senior management knew about it for years, but a lot of them just ignored it until the last possible moment. And that guaranteed these massive, unavoidable death march projects just to keep the lights on.
Okay, but hold on. If the chance of failure is over 50%, and you know you'll be working 13, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, why does anyone agree to do it? You'd think people would just quit on day one.
Well, the motivation often comes down to high risk, high rewards,
Does.
especially in a startup.
The startup dream.
You got it. We're talking stock options, the chance the company goes public,
Yeah?
team members becoming millionaires overnight. That potential payoff makes a sacrifice seem rational.
But sometimes the reward isn't financial at all, right? It's psychological. The M. Everest syndrome.
Exactly. It's the challenge, The drive for an amazing technical accomplishment, a real test of your skills, even if that accomplishment has, zero real-world value. The source gives this funny hypothetical example of putting Windows 95 on a wristwatch.
Right. You can do it, but why?
And that's where the sources recommend this so what test. You have to ask so what 2 or 3 times if the answers are always about the technical challenge and never about the business value.
You realize it's all just ego. The achievement is the goal, not a better product.
Precisely.
But there's more to it than just ego. There's also this buzz, a kind of camaraderie you get from facing impossible odds together, like the original Mac team.
Oh, for sure. And even the projects that fail spectacularly. Veterans later talk about them in these hushed tones. They're remembered as noble failures.
The glory of the fight.
That's the psychological lure. But we have to shift to the much grimmer reality for a lot of other people. For them, participation isn't optional.
So you're talking about economic coercion.
I am. For an older employee, say a 45-year-old COBOL programmer, refusing the Death March parameters might just mean losing their job, especially if the company is downsizing. For that person, the march isn't for glory, it's for survival.
On the flip side, though, for some developers, the DM can actually be liberating. It can become this sort of coveted skunkworks project.
Yeah, that's the paradox. It's a chance to get around the soul-crushing corporate bureaucracy, the methodology police who slow everything down. You basically trade all your free time for creative freedom.
So, okay, we know these projects are political minefields, fueled by desperation or ego. How do you survive once you're in one? The sources have these 4 political classifications. It's like you need to know which movie you're starring in.
That's a perfect analogy, and these 4 styles really define the project's entire trajectory. Let's look at the 2 failure modes first. The key difference is team morale.
Right. Is the failure going to be celebrated, or is it going to be weaponized against you?
Precisely. You've got the kamikaze project. It's doomed, low chance of success, but it has high happiness. The team believes they're fighting a glorious, honorable battle. They go down with the ship, but they're proud of it.
And the other one?
That's the suicide project. The absolute worst-case scenario. Low chance of success and low happiness. The team knows they're doomed, they're miserable, and they know they're going to be the political scapegoats for the failure.
Whew. Okay, so what about the projects that might actually succeed?
There you have Mission Impossible. Low chance of success, but high happiness and loyalty. That's your Hollywood ending. And then there's the ugly project. High chance of success, but very low happiness.
Let me guess. The manager burns the team out to hit the deadline.
That's it. The manager sacrifices the team's well-being to get the win.
So knowing your project's political style is key. And also knowing the players, the owner, customer, stakeholder. Because when someone corners you in the hallway with a question, you need to know if they're a friend or foe.
Your political radar has to be on at all times. And then, on the process side, the single most critical survival strategy is one thing: triage.
Just like in an emergency room.
Exactly. Since the team knows they can't do everything, they have to be ruthless. Up front, you prioritize every requirement into must do, should do, and could do, and you explicitly accept that some things will never get done.
The big danger here is what the sources call the ugly crisis.
Right. That's when the original manager avoids making those hard choices. The project fails, they get fired, and the new manager has to come in and do the triage under impossible pressure.
Which leads to the ultimate line in the sand for a project manager.
It's the litmus test. If your stakeholders refuse to accept that kind of hard-nosed triage at the very beginning, the most rational professional choice is to resign. Right then and there.
Because if you don't define success for them, they will define failure for you later.
100%.
Okay, let's talk practical people management hacks. A manager should insist on choosing their team. But if they can't, there's this cynical strategy for dealing with low performers.
It's a classic veteran move.
Yeah.
You accept all the staff you're given. Then you assign the less useful ones to what the source calls manning the coffee machine, changing fuses, and other essential work.
Right.
You box them out of the critical path while you fight like hell to replace them. It's triage for people.
And we have to talk about overtime. You can't just run at 80-hour weeks forever.
You absolutely cannot. Overtime has to be managed in controlled bursts. The data is clear. Sustained overtime leads to exhaustion, higher error rates, and eventually the team just collapses. You go hard for a short period, and then you mandate recovery time.
There's one last process tool that really stands out as mandatory: the daily build. Why is that so essential?
The daily build is non-negotiable because it forces a confrontation with reality. Every single day, you compile, link, install, and test the entire system.
So there's no hiding.
No hiding. It stops that thrashing where everyone looks busy, but no real progress is being made. As Jim McCarthy put it, the daily build is the heartbeat of the project. It's how you know you're alive. #outro.
So when you put it all together, what does this mean for you? Succeeding in a Death March project, if it's even possible, is a kind of tightrope walk. It's this balance of people who are keeping your team sane, plus sharp political awareness and just ruthless process management, triage, daily builds.
And ultimately, the sources bring it all back to this profound question about professional commitment. They mention a scientific conference where about a third of the people there were willing to sign up for a non-return one-way trip to Mars.
Wow, a literal one-way trip.
A genuinely dangerous, high-stakes physical mission.
So if people are willing to commit their entire lives, their safety, their future to a mission like that, the real question for professional survival becomes this, right? How often are we sort of coerced into these corporate one-way trips, these suicide or kamikaze projects? Projects that sacrifice our health, our families, our resources, often for rewards that are a lot less significant than, going public or saving the company.
And that really is the essential lesson of the Death March. Your commitment is a finite, precious resource. So you have to decide, is the march you're on leading you to your Mount Everest? Or are you just digging a ditch for someone else's political victory?